Introducing the perfect companion to your morning listening routine. AG1's clinically backed formula is now flavor-packed with 3 new delicious flavors: tropical, berry, and citrus. Start the day on a high note with probiotics that taste like the tropics. Mix it up with micronutrients that taste like berry or citrus. And take it all the way back with the classic, AG1 Original, with notes of pineapple and vanilla. Do your health a flavor, or 4, with AG1 Next Gen, the daily health drink. Learn more at drinkag1.com.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the most haunted city on earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And I'm JT Timmons.
I was waiting for chimes.
Chimes will come later on. Chimes will come later on.
Although we don't know if Chimes wasn't responsible for horrible technical difficulties.
Yeah. Oh, he was.
We could absolutely blame Chimes.
Yeah. Last night we had a live stream, and it was the first live stream to ever kind of like collapse on us because I found out that an XLR cable went bad. And it's still the same XLR cable that we're filming with, but I've positioned it just right.
Gingerly positioned.
Until we can fix situations.
Until I can fix it. Yep. So anyway,
there we go.
Got to figure it out.
Perfect. Well, today we, lucky y'all, I made another episode, so everybody's getting more content for this. But we're going to be talking about the little people of Alaska, which sounds a lot sweeter than I think they actually are. But nonetheless, we'll get into that in just one second. First off, though, we have a few announcements for you. If you live in the Savannah general area, anywhere near Savannah, within driving distance or flying if you're really about it, the Chatham County Animal Services is having an event this month only for September, and it's basically every Sunday they are waiving all adoption fees on all of the animals. So you can get a new doggy, you can get a new cat. I don't think they do any small animals, but if you want a new cat or a new dog, puppy, whatever it be, you know where to find them.
They can have a rhinoceros.
Yes. I was thinking more guinea pig, but
they probably have.
I don't think they do have rodents.
No, they don't have rodents.
I don't think they do.
I know Humane Society every once in a blue moon gets a rodent, but I'm sure it's probably like their owner passed away and they don't know what to do with this small rodent now.
It's hard to tell. Because I'm like walking through the Humane Society in my brain, and it's like, where would you even put a rodent?
They usually put it in the lobby because I feel like I've seen a bunny before.
That's
fair. I've definitely seen, but this is Chatham County Animal Services, so
which
this is the one
next door. Yes, and so basically, if you can't make it on a Sunday, though, you can go any day of the week except for Wednesday, and their adoption center is open from 1 p.m. to 4:30 p.m.
Heck yeah!
And the address is 7211 Sally Mood Drive here in Savannah. So if you're in the market for a new fur baby, you know where to find one. There's lots of sweet ones there. They're very cute and need loving homes. But other than that, y'all, we have some other exciting news. So as we always like to say, Patreon is the best way to support us to continue growing the brand and going on to more investigations. Traveling to investigations is very expensive, especially when you got to lug a bunch of equipment with you. So with that, if you would like us to go do other things while also getting a new community of really wonderful people, getting live streams, you get to have access to all the live streams that we do, plus every single investigation we live stream all night just for the Parajunkies, which is awesome. And we're running a little bit of a special, so it's a pre-October sale, if you will. And what it is that all new Parajunkies get 50% off their first month. So if you just want to do month to month, you can do just that for 50% off for your first month. And the code is half off.
Yes, all together, all caps, half off.
All together, all caps. And then if you're also in the sort of realm that you want to become a Parajunkie, you can also join us in a yearly membership, which you already get a little bit of a discount. But on top of that, you'll be getting a 10% discount if you sign up for a whole year membership. And that code is going to be 10 off. And that is one word, and off is in all caps.
Yes, and 10 is the number. So
Yes.
10 off, all together, all caps. And all of that will be in the description.
Yes, so super awesome deal. And it's a really fun time to join in because we're going to do lots of spooky stuff, including on September 29th, we are going to do our next investigation, which is at the Mars Theater in Springfield, Georgia, which is about 45-ish minutes outside of Savannah. And it is supposedly the sister theater to the Rylander theater that we just
Or
investigated.
they're in that same network of city-run theaters, because it is actually run by the city of Springfield, and that puts it in a special
little category. Yeah.
fraternity of theaters.
Yeah, so we're really excited to do that, and we are going to be live streaming all night solely for the Parajunkies. The public usually gets about an hour or so on the live stream, but after that we cut you off. So that live stream is going to be starting at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you want to join us all evening, you know where to find us. But if you also missed our last investigation at the Rylander, our film of our entire evening is now up on YouTube, and you can watch it. It is hilarious. We got a lot of really interesting evidence, including the word Springfield that came in. And this was before we even discussed going to the Mars
It was
Theater.
not even on our radar.
And so really weird. I think that was the ghost telling us that we have to go to Springfield now.
Or just anticipating.
Exactly. So if you want to watch that, it is linked down below. Go check it out. It's awesome. And go tell Debria that you love her editing and that she's so funny so that she keeps going on these investigations with us because she's terrified. But other than that, y'all, that's all the announcements that I have for you.
Cool.
So let's talk about some Native Alaskan folklore.
Yes, we watched a documentary last night called Blood and Myth.
Yes.
On Hulu, and it blew our minds.
It was so good.
So good. I thought it was going to be a true crime doc, but it was, and it kind of is a true crime doc.
Kind of, in a weird way. We won't spoil it for you.
Yeah.
There is a true crime element in the way that this man was saying that these creatures were telling him to do awful things. But that's not really their main gig. But in the way that down here in Savannah, especially amongst the Gullah Geechee people, they have an entity called the Boo Hag. And when it comes to that entity, they do not talk about that entity. It is kind of the same general vibe with these. They typically do not enjoy talking about them, which makes it really difficult to find a lot of stories unless they're written down.
Yeah, I went to all around Valdez, Alaska, asking about ghost stories, and no one would tell me a ghost story. Not a personal one, not a public one, no ghost stories. And that is super rare because usually when you ask people for ghost stories, even people who don't believe, they know like the local lore, they have local legend, they'll talk about it. No one would talk about any of it. I even went to the library looking up books on the subject, and they didn't have any.
Wow.
There were
Weird.
no books on the subject. I ended up in indigenous folklore books, which I ran across this.
Yeah.
But it was fascinating because even those books were so interesting presented because it was a outsider basically writing down what he could glean from, trying to get to the bottom of these stories. And I'm like, that's interesting. And I do have theories as to why that is, but we'll just continue on and we'll touch upon them later.
Yeah, exactly. And this is basically what I could find from the internet, but go watch that documentary if you're interested in this topic, because they actually had Native people speaking on the subject, including some who got to witness some of their houses that we'll talk about that I could not find photos of anywhere on the internet. So besides this
it's in the
documentary,
doc, yeah.
I can't find photos of these places, but they have it because they took a helicopter up there. So, but yeah, so let's go ahead and get into it. So who are they? Well, basically, there's a bunch of different names for the same entity depending on what group you're looking into. So I'll give you a few of the different variations, but they're all still talking about the same entity. So we've got the Yuphuk or the Kuphuk, which is in the the YK Delta, and they also call it the Ikchinhut. And elders and linguists describe them as other than human persons. They are small social beings who live much like people do, yet can appear/disappear and exist in a parallel realm. Personally, I'm just going to say it off the bat, they feel very fey-like. They behave very similar, and this was something
we got Faye Daddy coming
well,
through.
and this is something we talked about in the episode that we attempted to film yesterday that you guys will hear on a later date when we refilm it. But it's interesting when you look at folklore from different regions because of the fact that it feels like a lot of times we're all talking about the same entities. We just have different experiences due to our cultural perception to these entities, which is fascinating. If anything, they line more into the fae realm of like elves and gnomes and things like that.
Well,
Trolls.
I think it's even interesting that the word, because in all throughout New England, there's the Pukwudgies, right? Mm-hmm. So even the fact that there's that presence of the word Pukwudgie and Yipuk and Kupuk, the fact that those things even have any vague similarities, because the Pukwudgies are like a foot to 2 foot tall, covered in bristly hair, mischievous little people. And that's fascinating to think that cultures, again, separated by vast amounts of land, can land upon similar creatures, which suggests that at the very least, there's something familiar about the little person, right? The little magic person, the elf, the dwarf, the goblin, the hobgoblin. All these things, they exist in all these cultures. And it's like, well, we have to accept that if every culture on the face of the earth has names for these things, patterns of behaviors for these things, eyewitnesses of these things, that we should probably make that conversation more about the fact that regardless of their individual indigenous storyline, there's a tightly woven international, story. These things are existing in vastly different terrains with vastly different backgrounds.
Absolutely. Sorry, I made a face because it sounded like something was typing on the keyboard, which was very weird.
Don't like that.
It literally sounded like clicking noises. Sorry. The
today has been a weird day, by the way.
The ghosts have been really weird today. Yeah.
We've had several people have really weird experiences in the museum. We've had some things moving that shouldn't be moving, hearing lots of weird stuff. So it's a weird day.
Real fast, when are you dropping that TikTok? The door swinging. Closed?
It's already up.
It's up.
Oh, it's up? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, so y'all go on
Actually,
TikTok.
we have 2 TikToks now of the door closing.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
That was crazy. Like, there's this door that just, I'm not going to say it slams shut, but it closes quickly.
Well, the weirder part of that is the family's insistence that they saw this shadow figure.
Uh-huh.
And just before that, like less than a week before that, Rebecca, the ghost guide, was here, and she called out a shadow figure in that room, and she definitely felt that it was a demonic presence, that it was something, non-human at the very least, and that it was this menacing thing. And then to have, because they're not the only ones, we had like 6 people in the course of a day, not in the same group, 6 people in different groups coming through, all say they got ill in that room. They got stomach aches, and we had to rush them to the bathroom.
Oh, gosh.
That is crazy.
Anyway, that was an entire sidebar.
With that
we'll do a podcast episode on that later.
Yes, because it is insane. But yeah, so diving back into this, basically they also are known to be hunters and gatherers, and interestingly enough, where it really lines in with the Fae kind of concept is that a day in their realm equals about a year in our time. So a lot of time slip stories that we'll hear a little bit later on, because I have experiences that I was able to track down on the internet. So
Okay.
we'll talk about that. So some other names. So if you're like in Northwest Alaska or North Slope, you're oftentimes going to hear these as referred to as the Inukun. So also, if you watch the documentary we were talking about, they refer to them as the Inukan. It's the same entity. That's just their name for it. But in their folklore, they say they live high in the hills and mountains. They are small, but preternaturally strong, quick, and they are best to be left alone. Another name for them in Southeast Alaska is the Eyak, which basically means around the lake people. The Eyak tales include little people as distinct beings within their own story cycles. And in Southeast Alaska, you'll hear also about the Koshdaka, which is the land otterman. And I made sure to include this because they very distinctly separated the two. These are two different entities. So if you are learning more about these particular folklore traditions, the Koshdaka is the land ottermen, but they are shapeshifters, not little people, even though they look very similar. Sure. They are two different things, totally different storylines. So I figured,
Don't get them confused.
Since they're emphasizing this, I will emphasize it as well, just for fun. But some of their other core traits is they are other than human type persons, is how they're described. And the Yupik cosmology, beings like the Ikchinhut are treated as people who live socially, have agency, and share the land with humans, very similar to trolls and elves in our more Nordic type folklore. They also regard their little people, if you will, with regard in the way that you can't go onto their land, you can't do certain things, because they give those particular beings their own agency, which is always fascinating when it kind of coincides in the same way. And they mentioned in the documentary that at one point in time before westernization happened in Alaska, these people lived coincide with the Inuit people. And so when they became westernized, they got disappointed and they left.
And it's interesting that, because I think that is not uncommon throughout most indigenous peoples, is that there was more spiritual harmony before the Westerners came.
Right.
You know, that they had made all of these treaties and pacts and arrangements so that there would be no infringement on each other's time, life plans, locations. And to hear that's a trend in all of these nations. When Westerners come, it sours the natural order.
Right. It changes how they behave in their own culture.
Right.
And they don't like that. They are very against change, as we have come to learn. Which I think is why they live in such remote areas. I mean, Alaska, in a lot of ways, is very remote in general.
Oh, absolutely.
But they find even more remote areas of Alaska. So
harder to reach. Yeah.
Exactly. So they live in hilltops, rocky outcrops, and uplands, and are repeatedly linked to all of those areas are repeatedly linked to Ikchinhut dwellings in the lore told by elders. In the Inupiaq regions and the Inukun villages are said to sit on inaccessible mountainsides, which is a big reason why we don't have photos anywhere. So when they got that shot of the rock village that they found, you had to access that by helicopter. It's that difficult to get to.
Yeah.
And they brought an elder on that helicopter, I believe. And she was the one who said, those are, excuse my French because this was her words, those are fucking houses. That was literally what she said.
She did say that.
But yeah, which is fascinating. And typically their abilities and appearance is pretty similar throughout all of the different tribes, but they're described as small, so between 1 to 3 feet tall. They wear traditional style clothing. They're extremely strong. They're quick and able to vanish or shift in and out of our world. And some accounts include time dilation. So you're gone a day, but return to find out years have passed.
Which is classic Fey behavior.
Classic
I
Fey.
mean, literally the time of Tiranoog, if you spend a day there, you lose 10 years here.
Exactly.
That kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And some of the etiquette / taboos is that you don't disturb sacred places, you avoid interaction, and you show respect. That's when they get angry if you don't do those things. And so,
which is something Westerners suck at.
They're so bad at doing
so
that.
Bad
it's like
at any of those things. They
Yes.
cannot help but disturb sacred places. They're very confrontational, and their ability to show respect is very limited.
But in some of the modern stories, though, they mention leaving small offerings if you take something that you found in the tundra.
Oh, sure. Sure.
So also very fey-like. So let's talk about some encounters. So the first one I'm going to tell you is the Noatak pipe smoker that's happened in 1993. So Flora Penn, an Inupak woman from Noatak, spent a serene summer afternoon berry picking in the tundra. The only sounds were the gentle brushing of her basket against the low shrubs. As she observed the driftwood piled along the riverbank, she noticed movement. Initially mistaking it for a fox, she soon realized it was something far more peculiar. A tiny man, barely 3 feet tall, seated comfortably on a log. This peculiar figure had a pointed head, a long nose, and sharp ears. Very elf-like, very gnome-like. In his hand, he held a small pipe and smoked lazily, and it drifted into the air as if he possessed an infinite amount of time. Flora watched and...
Sure he wasn't just smoking weed?
He might have. You never know. It was a nice summer day.
I got nowhere to be, man. Chill.
Time's different in their realm.
Look at this, man. It's Alaska.
It's beautiful.
Bruh.
Gotta
Just have some of my pipe, man.
just sitting by the river.
Chris's high Inukan.
Could be a
Yeah.
storybook,
That's funny.
an adult storybook, but
Take off your shoes. Feel the grass, man.
So Flora watched, stunned in silence for nearly an hour. The little man didn't acknowledge her, but appeared completely at ease, as if he belonged there. Finally, as if sensing he'd been observed for too long, he hopped to his feet and darted toward the distant mountains. In an instant, he was gone. Flora later recounted the story in interviews, and it gained widespread attention in the region's newspapers as one of the most vivid modern sightings of the Ikchinhut. So then the next one is, we'll call it the time slip hunters.
Okay.
So this one is an Inupak tale, and it's from the Teller region. So 2 hunters from the Seaward Peninsula embarked on a hunt for caribou. As they ventured, and also, before I really get into the meat of this, number one people who see these entities are hunters.
Sure.
Yeah. I can believe
yeah.
that.
Yeah. And so they ventured across the tundra. The scent of moss and snow filled the air. Suddenly, their gaze was drawn to a peculiar sight on a hillside. A group of exceptionally small men engaged in an act of hunting caribou with the same skill and efficiency as ordinary hunters. The hunters froze in their tracks, transfixed by the sight of one of these diminutive individuals effortlessly hoisting a full-grown caribou over his shoulders, a feat that seemed beyond the capabilities of an ordinary person, let alone a man who was 3 feet tall.
A toddler.
A toddler. The men worked with remarkable efficiency, almost reveling in their task, oblivious to the hunters' presence. Cautiously, the hunters decided to turn back, fearing that their intrusion might disturb the delicate equilibrium of the enigmatic group. However, upon their return to their village, they discovered a horrifying revelation. Their friends and relatives had undergone remarkable transformations that had aged them significantly, some even becoming unrecognizable. A few elders offered an explanation that the hunters had inadvertently stumbled into the realm of the little people, where time operates at a vastly different pace. To the hunters, it had been only a day since their departure, but to everyone else, it had been years.
There are countless stories like this all around the world. Irishumatara, Rip Van Winkle, Cuckoo Lane, all of them have this exact same theme where if you go into their realm or you're tricked by them or you find yourself in their company, especially things like if you eat their food, if you take something from them, there's a horrible consequence, which is the time, you lost so much time. And the worst one is, I think in Kukulin's case, when he stepped back into real life, he aged. And basically turned to a pile of bones because he had been gone for like hundreds of years.
That would be insane. Could you even imagine what that would feel like, where you just walk back into your house and you're dust?
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you're just
and you just disintegrate.
clackety clack, pile of dust.
But interesting that you mentioned eating their food, because that will come up later.
Yeah.
So the next one I found was the sacred quarry rocks in the Nome area. So a highway crew once...
That's Nome,
yes,
not Gnome.
But
I always thought it was interesting that the Nome, Alaska, I was like, is that where the gnomes come from? Like, no, not Gnome, which... Why do we put the G there? Anyone?
It's silent. It's for
Just
fun.
Silent G. It's for fun.
Yeah.
Well, it's so you know that you're talking either about a little person or the city in Alaska.
True. So there you go. So a highway crew once surveyed a potential gravel site near Nome. Despite local warnings that the place was sacred, the project proceeded. On the second day of work, while staking out the site, the men began to feel a sense of being watched. Suddenly, small rocks clattered around their feet, seemingly hurled from nowhere. Initially, they thought it was children playing tricks, but the tundra was empty. They heard no voices and saw no footprints. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the four men called off the project, and the people of the village explained that the site was sacred to the little people and advised leaving it alone. An elder even offered a tip. If you ever find something valuable in the tundra, such as a good piece of driftwood, a tool, or a carved stone, you should leave a small offering, even just a cigarette, which apparently that's the number one offering they want. I've read this multiple times that they want a cigarette as their offering. And it's a token of respect.
Bunch of rebellious teenage gnomes out there.
I guess so.
All right, listen up. I just need a cigarette. Just a cigarette. Here, take the gold. Take the gold. Just give me a cigarette. I just need a cigarette.
You don't want rocks thrown at you? You get cigarettes.
You get cigarettes.
You know what'd be really interesting is if, like, we were able to locate an area that is accessible where we believe that they might travel every once in a while, and then we put, like, a box that something intelligent would... could get into. So it's like, you leave the code on the box, and it's like, open the box with like 2, 3 something, and you open it up and there's a cigarette, and then we can see if the cigarette's gone.
Yeah.
That could be interesting.
Mm-hmm. Given that this style of creature exists in every corner of the country, we should look for the little people of this region and try it there. The closest one that I can think of are the moon people that are up in the Appalachian Mountains. But as a matter of fact, in North Georgia, there is a moon people settlement. Like there's like those small wall.
Yeah, it's
fairy wall. We should go there and try that.
Yeah, honestly. Okay. Yeah, we're because it's in North Georgia, and then Morganton is like
Morganton's a big one too.
Yeah, Morganton, North Carolina is like the moon-eyed people place. Yeah. But either one would be really interesting.
I want to say there's like a military base in northwest Georgia.
What do moon-eyed people want though? Like they don't want cigarettes. I think
think they do.
They do.
If they're mountain
tobacco
people, I guess
I think tobacco
that would make
is something
sense.
that they are drawn to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because something that a lot of people don't realize is that tobacco for many, many centuries was a spiritual tool. You used it to the smoke of tobacco was a big part, like smoking the peace pipe, doing these things. They were actually concocting these herbal leaf things, and tobacco had this natural rush that it gave you. So they thought that it had spiritual properties, so they were using it for all kinds of things. And you just imagine a bunch of elves out there going, "Hey man, can I bum a cigarette off you? I'll grant a wish. Just give me a cigarette."
It looks like Mylea said that she's an hour from Morganton.
There you go.
Very nice.
Yeah, so maybe she can run something over there.
I feel like we have a couple of artifacts from Morganton.
There
the
are.
wheelchair is.
Yes.
The wheelchair,
Yeah, from the hospital.
Right.
I think that and the leg too.
I think the leg is maybe, but I think the Virgin Mary from the prison is also from around the Morganton area, or at least the woman lived in Morganton.
Okay.
Well, that's creepy.
Yeah.
So there you go. So this next one, if you ever find yourself on Nelson Island in Alaska.
Oh yeah, I go there all the time.
Well, don't climb the hill called Kassengeik. It is not spelled anything like that, but Kassengeik is.
Oh, it is not spelled like that at all. Why do we do that?
I don't know.
We are the English speakers. We can spell it the way it sounds.
Right.
And nobody's going to be mad at us.
Exactly. But yeah, so many years ago, hunters who ascended the hill encountered smoke curling from its summit, which, I mean, it's a mountain in a way, so not entirely uncommon. But upon approaching, they discovered tiny dwellings partially concealed in the grass and caught fleeting glimpses of small beings moving about. So they stumbled on one of these villages that we were talking about. But these beings appeared to live in a manner reminiscent of the Yupik people, gathering berries, drying fish, and tending to fires. And even today, travelers continue to talk about strange shapes moving near the hilltop. And elders caution against calling out to such figures, as they may vanish before one's eyes, or worse, be drawn into their realm. And the hill is not merely a geological formation. It serves as a boundary between human and otherworldly beings in their culture.
You know, I think that is something that mountain ranges oftentimes signify, which is why the Appalachian Trail is such a point of contention, is the belief that the mountain range itself is the barrier. And being on one side of it, the eastern side of it, puts you in more supernatural peril than being on the western side of it, because the mountain range itself is the gate, and you pass through the gate to get to what makes sense, because the whole thing is that the mountain range is the same mountain range as the Scottish Highlands.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so when you think of that in that way, a lot of these stories, again, they're so reminiscent of stories from Scotland and Ireland and the Celtic European folklore. They match up with Appalachian stories. And then, of course, when we started, when the Gullah Geechee came in, the fascination is the collision between the Gullah Geechee cultures that were bringing a lot of African and Caribbean influence into it. And then it kind of like bled north. It creates like a perfect storm in North Carolina. North Carolina, West Virginia have like this amazing storm of
a fusion
of these bizarre magical entities.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's what I love whenever we do deep dives, if you will. This is dive light, if you dive light.
We're skimming it.
Yes. But it's always interesting when we do that, because you do see a lot of correlations between different cultures, and it's always fascinating to compare the two. But another one that happened was Kenneth Ashby's encounter in 1938. And in 1938, two young brothers, Kenneth Ashby and his sibling, were traveling along the Noatak River. And as they rounded a bend, they stumbled upon an interesting sight. They claimed to see a group of small men dressed in caribou skins. The group was engaged in their hunting activities, but their size was undeniable children's size, yet clearly adult in appearance. The boys were paralyzed with fear.
That would break your brain.
It would break your brain fully. And the little men glanced their way but displayed no hostility. Undeterred, the brothers turned and fled, their hearts pounding in their chests, until they finally reached their camp. And throughout his life, Kenneth repeated the story, steadfast in his belief in what he had witnessed. And it has since become one of the most well-known historical anecdotes associated with the Inukun people. And so this one is one of my favorite ones, because it's called the Caribou Meat Fest. Or
Meat
Feast.
Fest. Oh, Meat Feast.
Meat Feast.
So before we go any further, somebody came into the museum today and was telling me about a story in her family where this was at a time when if you had a mentally ill child, you would chain them in the attic. This was a common story. We were talking about the Lemp Mansion, which has a story about a possible mentally handicapped child that they kept in the attic. She says, that actually happened to my family. And my family had this, like my great-grand nephew was, kept chained, but he would escape every now and then. And he would always threaten, because he had some kind of disorder that made him always want to eat. So he's always hungry, always ravenous, always wanting to eat. And he would say, more meat or I'll appear. And I was like, that is the
That's
creepiest
terrifying.
thing I've heard. I was like, so it became like a ghost story to the family that they would hear this in the dead of night, more meat or I'll appear, long after he had died.
Wow. That's creepy.
That's awful. That is awful.
Anyway, meat feast.
All of those, every part of that story was awful.
Wasn't it? It's just terrible.
Yeah. So the caribou meat feast, though, now this one was written down by somebody, but it was told by an elder in their community. So one of the elders recalled being invited to dine with the little people as a child. Because remember, in some parts of Alaska, it didn't get westernized until the 50s. So there are people who are conceivably still alive.
Oh, absolutely.
Who would have remembered before the Westerners came in.
And you got to realize that it wasn't like a light switch.
Right.
So there are people who lived through the change, through the, we definitely have first generation Western influence people, operating, at the height of their societies right now.
Exactly. So this elder remembered being invited to dine with the little people as a child, and they were kind and offered him roasted caribou.
Wow.
He ate and laughed with them, feeling like he had spent an evening in good company. However, when he finally returned to his village, he discovered that his parents had grown much older and his siblings had matured. So that's why I said when you mention eating their food, it causes that as well.
Yep.
Despite only having been gone for a single night, it felt like a year to his family. He never saw the little people again, but he cherished their generosity and warned younger generations that time operates differently in their world.
Vitamin Water Zero Sugar has great taste, zero BS, and obviously zero sugar. For those with zero room in their calendar, zero patience for slow walkers, those who get 0 hours of sleep on a Saturday night, have zero filter, zero given, and zero interest in grabbing a plain, boring water. Grab a delicious Vitamin Water Zero Sugar today.
This message is sponsored by Greenlight. With school out, summer is the perfect time to teach our kids real-world money skills they'll use forever. Greenlight is a debit card and the #1 family finance and safety app used by millions of families, helping kids learn how to save, invest, and spend wisely. Parents can send their kids money and track their spending and saving, while kids build money confidence and skills in fun ways. Start your risk-free Greenlight trial today at greenlight.com/Spotify. That's greenlight.com/Spotify.
That's fascinating all in itself. That is worth a deep dive at some point, is the fact that time dilation stories are so, because it's not a time slip.
Right.
Time dilation really does affect people in weird ways. I actually have a time dilation story myself. And it just, there's just so many attributes to it that just make your brain hurt. Because it's like, how is it possible? How do you possibly have time simply slip away like that?
Right. Yeah. And we can do a whole nother episode.
Yeah.
We did an episode on time dilation and time slips a little bit, but we can do another one too. No, I only have 2 more stories for y'all. And these were 2 I found on Reddit, because I love going to Reddit because it's anonymous. So people will just willingly share their stories. It's great. So this person said, I know of a DOT, so Department of Transportation crew, that swears to God they were attacked by little people, knocked in the head with rocks at a remote location north of Nome. So I'm wondering if it's the same case that I talked about earlier.
It's possible, but I think it's kind of interesting that, it may not be.
Exactly. And so they were surveying a potential rock quarry site they had been warned was sacred. DOT abandoned that site as a potential quarry. Also, I've been told by UPIC fellows to leave the little people a cigarette if you find and take something good in the tundra, like a knife you find. Which I'm like, are people finding knives in the tundra? But that's
actually,
that's
I would
what
imagine
they said.
that's one of the most common things to find are tools. Maybe not expressly a knife, but people who go backpacking, people who go, they carry small and important tools with them.
Exactly. So this next one is a little bit longer, so I'm going to try to read as best as I can. But also the names, they said they changed for privacy. But a local Nome man I was working with told me how his uncle had been hunting with a friend, Let's call him Eugene and Cameron. These two native Alaskan hunters were described as being excellent marksmen and exceptionally talented at navigating the hazards of the untamed expanses. They'd been tracking a big caribou herd for a while and eventually caught up with them in a mountainous valley. The duo walked into the valley, leaving their four-wheelers behind so as not to spook the caribou with engine noises. There in the center of the valley, the placid beasts grazed on tundra scrub. Eugene and Cameron climbed a little ways up the western side of the valley, across some rolling elevation, and kept losing and regaining sight of the herd while they got within range. It was late afternoon, and the western sun illuminated the valley and the east side of the enclosing mountains. The hunters were in the chilly shadows and moved silently. Eugene and Cameron got a good vantage point to select their targets using binoculars. Eugene scoped out the herd while Cameron took a quick moment for a smoke. Despite the remote location, Eugene spotted a curiosity, a trio of hunters on the far side of the valley. They'd killed and were cleaning a massive bull, or so it seemed. Something was off, though, and Eugene pointed this out to Cameron, who stopped smoking immediately to take a look. And Cameron pulled out his rifle and zeroed the powerful scope on the three hunters. He quickly realized why the scene was so perplexing. The trio wore traditional indigenous clothing, handmade from hides and lacking any of the trappings now common among modern native Alaskans. Villagers have long since taken up Carhartts, muck boots, and Cabela's as their gear of choice. It was stressed upon me that no one wears old garb nowadays, except for ceremonies and holidays, and especially not to hunt. Other anomalies were quickly apparent. There were no guns in sight, and these hunters' bodily proportions were askew. Big heads with short bodies and commensurate arms and legs, but clearly muscular. All of a sudden, one of the hunters stopped his task and looked up from the caribou. His hand shot up with his index finger pointing straight to the sky. The other two stopped too and looked at their companion expectantly. In an instant, the arm dropped parallel to the ground with the finger pointed directly at Eugene and Cameron. All three hunters turned their heads at the same time to look at the men. Startled, both flinched, looked at each other, and then back toward the trio. But there was not to be seen. No hunters, no butchered caribou, nothing. And so, after bagging their own kills, the two friends went to investigate the site where they saw the trio and their bull. Small splotches of blood littered the area. Tiny footprints like those of children were scattered around a circle, but there were no traces of tracks leading to or from the spot. Which, I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah, that absolutely is.
And so those are my stories that I have for y'all today.
Love it.
I think it's just fun folklore, to be honest.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like...
and that it mirrors so many folklores from around the world is fantastic.
Absolutely.
We have a few listeners from Alaska, and if any listener is from Alaska and wants to try that cigarette thing out, I'd be down.
Let us know.
If you want to, you can
just leave a
message
cigarette
us.
out. Just put one on a banister. Put one.
It'd be cool to like have the person film it, and we can kind of sponsor it almost.
Yeah.
like let's see if the Inukans are still out there.
Say yeah.
I think that's so cool.
I think that would be interesting. I mean, we could in theory do that up in North Carolina ourselves with fairies in the way, because I feel like the fairies would take a cigarette. They'll take anything that's trinkety.
It's all very simple. Yeah. And value comes at strange intervals for the magic folk, because oftentimes they recognize the significance of you. So sometimes leaving something personal to you is far greater than leaving a chunk of gold. Or, I always think about in Labyrinth when Hoggle is like, oh, what's that? And she says, oh, it's plastic. And he goes, oh, plastic.
Ooh, yes. Yeah, it's very similar in the way that, like, think about Rumpelstiltskin. It's he didn't want something fancy or flashy. He wanted something that meant something to the person he was making a deal with. That's kind of the overall concept that they have in all sorts of fae adjacent type creatures. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed listening to that documentary and also reading some more about them. So,
The name of the documentary again?
Blood and Myth.
Blood and Myth.
On
Hulu.
Hulu. It's really cool.
It's really good.
Really
Yeah.
freaking good. It's crazy. There's murder. There's Inukans. It's a whole thing.
Yeah. So it's fun. Yeah, go watch that. They tell a bunch of different little stories as well, and they show you footage, which is cool. So yeah. Other than that, y'all, I think that's all we have for you today. But my name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And stay spooky, y'all.
Alrighty.
Boop.
Woot, 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 woot.